There are moments in sports that words cannot fully capture. Moments where everything stops and the only thing left is the weight of what you are actually watching. Kurt Busch's tribute to his brother at Charlotte Motor Speedway was one of those moments. He did not give a long speech. He did not do a dramatic interview. He walked out to the black number 8 painted into the infield grass, the number his brother had driven in the final chapter of his Cup career with Richard Childress Racing, carried 8 white flowers, one for the number that had become so closely tied to Kyle at RCR, placed them down, knelt beside the painted number, made the sign of the cross, and took a moment that did not need any explanation. For fans watching, it was not just a brother honoring a driver. It was an older brother saying goodbye to someone who had been part of his life from childhood go-karts in Las Vegas, all the way to the highest level of American stock car racing. Kurt and Kyle were not just two drivers with the same last name. They were the winningest brothers NASCAR has ever seen. Between them, they defined an era, and in very different ways, they both carried the same Busch edge: sharp, fearless, stubborn, and impossible to ignore. Their relationship was always fascinating because they were not soft personalities. Kurt was the older brother, the first one to become a Cup champion, and the one who opened the door in many ways for Kyle to be seen as the next great Busch talent. Kyle then came into NASCAR with ridiculous speed, confidence, and a willingness to fight anybody on the track. Both became champions, both became controversial, both became respected, and over time, the story of the Busch brothers became one of NASCAR's great family stories. This was not a manufactured family brand. These were two brothers who lived racing, argued through racing, built their names through racing, and ultimately became two of the most important drivers of their generation. Kurt had his own Cup championship and Daytona 500 win. Kyle became a 2-time Cup champion, the all-time wins leader across NASCAR's 3 National Series, and one of the most complete racers the sport has ever produced. That is why seeing Kurt kneel in the infield hit so hard. He was not honoring a stat sheet, he was honoring his brother. The rest of the Busch family was there too, and that made the tribute even heavier. Samantha Busch stood with Brexton and Lennox. Kyle's parents, Tom and Gay, were part of the moment. Kurt stood with them. The garage stood behind them. For a sport that spends most Sundays talking about speed, aggression, rivalries, and points, this was one of those rare moments where everything slowed down. NASCAR's official statement had already made clear how much Kyle meant to the sport. The joint message from the Busch family, NASCAR, and Richard Childress Racing said, "Our entire NASCAR family is heartbroken by the loss of Kyle Busch. A future Hall of Famer, Kyle was a rare talent, one who comes along once in a generation. He was fierce, he was passionate, he was not easy, he was not meant to be easy. Kyle Busch made people feel something, and that is one reason NASCAR feels so empty without him." At Charlotte, the tribute continued beyond Kurt's flowers. Amazing Grace was played on bagpipes before the race. Then, NASCAR CEO Steve O'Donnell led the crowd in a moment of silence. The field later performed a missing man formation, leaving the front position open for the number 8 Chevrolet Kyle should have been driving. And then, on lap 8, the broadcast went silent. Fans held up 8 fingers in tribute to Rowdy. That lap 8 tribute was especially emotional because NASCAR fans know what those lap tributes mean. At Daytona, fans still raised 3 fingers for Dale Earnhardt Sr. Now at Charlotte, they were holding up 8 for Kyle. It was not just a number. It was a reminder that NASCAR had lost an active legend, a driver still competing, still chasing, still part of the weekly rhythm of the garage. Richard Childress Racing also made a major gesture. The team moved Kyle's car number from 8 to 33 for the Coca-Cola 600, with Austin Hill stepping in. The number 8 was not simply passed to someone else, it was paused, reserved, and treated as something that belonged to Kyle's final chapter. That decision mattered because Kyle had helped make that stylized number 8 part of his identity, and now that number carries an emotional weight no replacement could ignore. The garage felt that weight too. When the RCR car was unloaded at Charlotte, crew members from other teams stood and watched in silence. That's not a normal NASCAR scene. Usually the garage is noise, tools, engines, people rushing, teams preparing. But for that moment, everything slowed down again. The number 33 was pushed out. The black number 8 decal sat near the window, and everybody understood what was missing. Daniel Suarez described how strange it felt knowing Kyle would no longer be there every week. He said, "It's definitely going to be different. It's going to take a while for everybody to get used to not seeing the 8 out there and competing with Kyle every single week. Someone you have to run with, someone you have to see around a track. It's going to be tough for everybody." That line says a lot. Drivers are creatures of habit. They see the same helmets, the same haulers, the same crews, the same rivals week after week for decades. Kyle Busch had been one of those constants for more than 2 decades. Whether you liked him or feared him, he was always there. Suddenly, he was not. Joey Loganow also spoke about Kyle in a way that showed how time can soften even the fiercest rivalries. Kyle and Joey had plenty of history, including one of the most famous confrontations of the modern era. But at Charlotte, Loganow talked about him with real respect and real sadness. He remembered a recent moment at Talladega when their families were together and their kids were playing, and he said, "Probably one of the last times I talked to Kyle was at the playground at Talladega. I remember seeing him, and the first thing I walked up to him, because it was right after he did a podcast saying how he didn't like me, I said, 'What the heck? I thought we were friends.' And then we had a good laugh about it." That's the kind of story fans might remember more than any feud, because behind the TV clips, behind the fights, behind the rivalries, Kyle was also a father, a husband, a brother, a person who shared real relationships inside the garage. And that's why Kurt's moment in the infield was so important. It reminded everyone that behind the legend was a family living through the worst possible race weekend. For fans, Kyle was Rowdy. For competitors, he was one of the best ever. For NASCAR, he was a future Hall of Famer. But for Kurt, he was his brother. For Samantha, he was her husband. For Brexton and Lennox, he was dad. One of the most heartbreaking parts of the weekend was seeing Brexton there. He's already a young racer himself, and everyone around NASCAR knows how proud Kyle was of him. Kyle had celebrated Brexton's 11th birthday just days before his passing, writing about how proud he and Samantha were of the person he was becoming. Now, Brexton was standing at Charlotte while the entire sport honored his father. That image will stay with people because Kyle's legacy is not only in the record books, it is also in the drivers he helped shape, the young racers he influenced, and the family he loved publicly. Bubba Wallace, who raced for Kyle Busch Motorsports early in his career, posted one of the most emotional tributes of the week. He wrote, "My eyes hurt from all the crying. My heart hurts from the pain. Just Sunday mid-race, I thought about Kyle Busch and one of many lessons that he had taught me. Is it loose? Drive through it and trust it." He continued by saying Kyle was a monumental factor in who Bubba Wallace became, and that Kyle played a role in nearly every part of what he had been able to accomplish. That's the part of Kyle's legacy that can get lost behind the villain image. Yes, he talked. Yes, he clashed. Yes, he made people angry, but he also helped people. Even after the race itself, Kyle's presence was everywhere. Daniel Suarez won the Coca-Cola 600 and dedicated the victory to Kyle, turning the end of the night into another emotional reminder that this was not a normal race. It was a race run under grief, with every driver carrying the same knowledge that the number 8 should have been there. And maybe that's what made Kurt's moment in the infield feel like the center of it all. NASCAR could organize a ceremony, the broadcast could go silent, fans could hold up 8 fingers, teams could put decals on cars. All of those gestures mattered, but Kurt kneeling in the grass with 8 white flowers showed the private loss inside the public tribute. Kyle Busch meant something different to everyone. To some fans, he was the villain they loved to boo. To others, he was their favorite driver, the one who never gave polished answers and never raced like he was protecting anybody's feelings. To drivers, he was a measuring stick. To younger racers, he was proof that raw talent and relentless hunger could take you anywhere. To Kurt, he was the little brother who became one of the greatest racers NASCAR has ever seen. That is why the Coca-Cola 600 tribute was not just about saying goodbye to a champion. It was about NASCAR recognizing that one of its main characters was gone. The sport will keep racing because that's what the sport does, and honestly, Kyle probably would have wanted it that way, but it won't feel the same for a very long time. Rest easy, Rowdy. Now, I want to hear from you. What Kyle Busch moment will you always remember? Drop it in the comments. Let's honor him the right way. If you found this video meaningful, hit that like button and subscribe to NASCAR Hub. We're just getting started, and we'll keep covering this sport with the honesty and passion it deserves. Thanks for watching. Rest easy, number 8.